Chapter 31 X-23's Terrifying Potential. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 31 The Terrifying Potential of X-23. Never heard of it. Samuel took his head back and shook his head slowly. At the same time, he couldn't help but look back at the rows of iron boxes behind him, and said again, "But he must be very capable, otherwise he wouldn't be so attractive to you." They did not hesitate to spend more than 20 experimental subjects just to reproduce the abilities of a Wolverine, which shows that the value of Wolverine definitely far exceeds the cost of these experimental subjects. He used to be as ferocious as a beast. Donald patted Logan on the shoulder and turned to give him a meaningful smile. Logan knew that Donald was deliberately provoking, and he was sure that Logan would not get angry. Indeed, Logan's vital point is now grasped by the other party. Even if this guy is so presumptuous, there is nothing he can do now, but he didn't pay attention to Donald, but stepped forward and put his eyes on the drawing. It's the drawing from Plan X. Logan recognized this drawing. It was a concept drawing made by scientists when Logan was in the X laboratory. It was also the DNA gene left by Wolverine at that time, which led to the current X-23 Luo gen pool. James, don't worry, as long as you find X-23, no one will be interested in an old guy. Donald smiled and patted Logan on the shoulder. These words made Josh L. and Samuel confused, but Logan knew what this guy meant. Laura's potential in all aspects is actually far greater than that of Wolverine. She is younger, has better statistics, and has greater development prospects. It can be said that she is a more perfect Wolverine. With Laura as a perfect experimental subject, Logan seems less important. After all, no one wants to care about a dying old wolf. Of course, the premise is to find Laura. Let's go, I've got the things. Donald rolled up the drawing and waved it in his hand. This move made a few people slightly stunned. Just this drawing? Samuel looked at the drawing and then at the boxes here. I thought the target was these boxes. Donald put the drawings into his pocket and said with a contemptuous smile, "Those are just a group of failed experiments and have no use value." "Then why don't you find the three of us? Even a homeless man can help you with such a simple task." Samuel was confused and had no idea what the significance of their trip to accompany Donald was. In case. Donald chuckled and strode towards the door. "Let's go, don't worry, you will not be less rewarded." Samuel and Josh looked at each other, feeling that this task was a bit bafflingly simple, but since the sponsor said so, the two of them had no objections and kept up with Donald's pace. Arriving outside the laboratory, Logan and the others were about to get on their motorcycles and leave. Bang! Suddenly, a burst of dazzling white light suddenly hit. The rapid speed made it impossible to see its shape clearly, and the dazzling glare made it impossible to look directly. "Get out of the way!" Logan's pupils shrank suddenly, and he felt a strong sense of crisis in the white light. He almost subconsciously ducked to the side to avoid it. Pang! The white light hit a motorcycle accurately and exploded like a rocket. The rumbling explosion spread throughout the trees. The four motorcycles exploded almost at the same time, and the flames from the exploded fuel tanks swept out. The shock wave made the surrounding trees rustle and leaves scattered in the sky. The silent jungle was awakened instantly, countless birds fled, and the beasts on the ground also fled in a hurry, making bursts of fleeing sounds. Damn it, I should have thought of a high-paying task. It would never be that simple. Samuel got up from the ground and looked around with cautious eyes. The first time Logan yelled to get out of the way, he hurriedly lay down to avoid the impact of the explosion. Seeing the motorcycle that had been turned into ruins and burning, Samuel felt scared in his heart. If they had gotten on the car just now, they would only be turned into a few exploded corpses. Fortunately, these people were not ordinary people. They immediately lay down to avoid the attack without causing any casualties. Attention alert! Logan stared at the direction of the white light, and his quick ears allowed him to hear the sound of approaching footsteps. He's from Hydra. Donald took out the pistol from his waist, stared intently into the depths of the jungle, and said solemnly, "We are not the only ones who study mutants. Those crazy people are also interested in the drawings in my hand." He was very sure of the origin of this group of enemies. After all, those who studied mutants and dared to take the initiative to attack him were most likely Hydra. At this time, a group of heavily armed teams rushed out of the woods. They were well equipped and carried various weapons in their hands. Some even held a Gatling gun, and there was a person who helped him carry ammunition. Chain. These people are extremely fast and block almost all escape routes. Withdraw to the laboratory first. Logan looked at these people and his eyes shrank sharply. If they meet head-on, the pistols of several of them are no match for this group of well-armed people. Donald's eyes were gloomy. He stopped talking and ran towards the laboratory. Samuel and Joshua also felt numb and rushed back to the laboratory desperately. After the last Logan entered the laboratory, he did not forget to prop up the door that had been kicked down by Donald and use a table to block it. The four of them were in the laboratory, looking carefully at the enemies outside through the gap in the door. These fully armed enemies quickly surrounded the entire laboratory. It can be seen that this group of guys cooperated very well, holding their weapons and pointing them in all directions of the laboratory. No matter where they escaped from, they would be shot into sieves in the first time. "Get out!" A black man stood out from the crowd. His tall body made him very eye-catching in the crowd. His sturdy figure was like a standing brown bear. Moreover, he did not carry any weapons. Except for the bulletproof vest on his body, no guns could be seen at all. This seemed out of place in a fully armed team. He stared at the laboratory and shouted, and his rough voice kept echoing in the jungle. "This smell!" Logan stood in the laboratory, raised his head slightly and sniffed, and his expression suddenly changed. "There is a mutant among them." The movement just now must have been caused by them, that he noticed something was wrong from the attack just now. The ball of white light was neither a bullet, nor a rocket, nor a grenade, but it could easily destroy 4 motorcycles. This must be some strange means. Now he can clearly smell the smell of the tribe drifting outside, which further confirms the idea that there are similar people outside. "You can smell this?" Samuel looked at Logan's actions with a look of astonishment, and couldn't help but look up and sniff, but he couldn't smell anything except the rotten smell in the laboratory. Buzz. Before they could discuss more, the black man outside suddenly raised his hand. A sharp buzzing sound came, and the white light gathered in the black man's hand. The dazzling light was simply impossible to look directly at, and the terrifying energy in the white light made everyone feel horrified. At this moment, the space was trembling because of this terrifying energy, and the environment even had ripples. Whoosh! The black man waved hard, and the white light flew out instantly and hit the door. Bang! The violent explosion spread out instantly, and the whole laboratory shook violently in the explosion. The old and dilapidated building seemed to collapse at any time in the explosion, and the wall skin kept falling off, and dust filled the air. The heavy iron door at the entrance was broken immediately, and the huge door frame was like a crumpled roll of paper, completely collapsed. The shock wave of the explosion also blew the surrounding trees away for a long time. Chapter 32 Red Tank's Genetically Cultivated Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The laboratory floor shook, dust fell like a drizzle, and the iron door cracked as if it had been hit by a rocket. As the dust mist dispersed, Logan stood up from behind the metal cabinet, shook off the dust from his body, and quickly turned back to check on the other people. At the same time as the white light group attacked, Logan shouted to avoid. He hid behind a heavy metal cabinet. Donald and others quickly retreated to the corner and used a table in front of them to resist. The impact of the explosion, the dust raised by the explosion covered all of them with a thick layer of dust, making them look extremely embarrassed. Go to the second floor. Donald looked at the breached door with a cold expression. He glanced at the stairs leading to the second floor and quickly ran up the stairs. Samuel and Joshua quickly followed. Logan looked back at the Hydra team that was about to rush into the laboratory, thought for a moment, reached out and wiped a layer of dust on the wall, wiped it hard on his face, making it all gray, and then hurriedly moved toward run up the stairs. He didn't want to be recognized by the Hydra people. Otherwise those crazy guys would even take him into the laboratory for various studies at any cost. They are trying to escape. Hurry up and catch up. The Hydra soldiers saw the backs of several people running towards the second floor, and quickly waved and rushed forward. At the same time, Donald, who climbed up to the second floor, pointed to a table and said, "Bring this table over here quickly." Samuel and Joshua understood the situation and worked together to overturn the table to the stairway on the second floor and create a temporary bunker. At the same time, they raised their pistols and pointed them at the corner of the stairs, bang bang bang. Hydra soldiers just showed up around the corner, and several of them shot without hesitation. A dense barrage of bullets splashed out like rain, and the Hydra soldiers at the front were instantly shot through by bullets and fell to the ground. When the Hydra soldiers behind saw this, they were instantly shocked. They quickly retreated behind the corner, looking at each other and not daring to step forward rashly. Taking advantage of the gap when the Hydra soldiers stopped, Donald pointed to a nearby window. Logan and the others understood, fired a few more bullets towards the stairs, and then quickly ran towards the window. Logan, who was the first to bear the brunt, flew forward and kicked without hesitation. The heavy force instantly shattered the thickened glass into pieces. Several people climbed over the windows and jumped out of the backyard. However, the scene in the backyard shocked Samuel and Josh. "There are high walls behind here, how can we get out?" Joshua raised his pistol and looked around. The backyard looked like a simple playground, with some swings made of tires, a few elastic trampolines, etc. In addition to these simple entertainment facilities, there is a high wall 3 to 4 meters high, and there is even a hook net on the high wall to prevent climbing. "There's a back door." Donald looked back and made sure that the pursuers were not catching up so quickly, then he led a few people and ran towards a corner at the end of the backyard. This is a thick iron door embedded in a high wall, as thick as the palm of your hand, but fortunately it is not locked. "How can we go back without a car?" Samuel and Joshua pushed the door hard while not forgetting to ask Donald. "This place is at least 10 kilometers away from the town, and it's getting dark soon. In this unfamiliar place, they will get lost in the deep forest accidentally. Get rid of these guys first." Donald kept looking behind him, his brows knitted together. It was not easy to push the heavy iron door. Samuel and Joshua exerted their strength at the same time to barely push out a gap that allowed people to pass through. Several people rushed out of the door, but as soon as they went out, the 4 of them froze in place. "Fark!" Donald couldn't help but curse, and there was even a little fear in the depths of his eyes. "Where do you want to go?" A rough voice passed into the ears of several people, and the dull voice was as deafening as muffled thunder. Logan stared at the figure blocking the door. Although there was only one person on the other side, Logan smelled danger in him. It was a towering figure, at least 2.5 meters tall, with muscles all over his body. His shoulders alone were as thick as a bucket. His clenched fists looked like a pair of huge iron fists, and there was a heavy steel helmet. Compared with him, Logan and the others are like giants and dwarfs. "Red Tank." Logan looked up and stared at the giant's face, unable to help but murmur, "This man's appearance is almost identical to that of Red Tank, especially the steel helmet on his head, but under the helmet, he has a face that is completely different from Red Tank's." Bang! The big man stared at them, suddenly smiled jokingly, and stood up from the ground. The broad soles of his feet stomped hard to the ground, and even the ground rippled, like an earthquake, and his running figure was like an out-of-control truck, crashing into everyone mercilessly. Logan's pupils shrank suddenly and he quickly flew down. Bang! The huge body hit the high wall heavily, and the thick wall shattered. The cracked bricks were scattered everywhere, and dust and mist filled the air. "Fark." Samuel, who fell to the ground, looked back at the huge hole in the high wall that had been knocked open, and couldn't help but curse angrily, with fear in his eyes. If he bumped into someone, he would be smashed into pieces. Not only him, but Donald and Joshua were also frightened. Joshua seized the opportunity, raised his pistol, and fired continuously at the big guy. Bang, bang, bang. After a while, the bullets in the magazine were emptied in an instant, but what made Joshua's pupils shrink was that the bullets could not cause any harm to him at all. The high-speed rotating bullet seemed to hit steel, and the bullet was instantly crushed into a piece of iron, sticking to his chest, and even the surface skin could not penetrate. Joshua and Samuel felt their scalps tingling. "Bullets are useless to him." Donald concentrated and said loudly, "This guy is an experimental subject cultivated with the genes of the Red Tank. The density of his flesh is even far higher than that of aviation steel. Even the tank's armor-piercing bullets can hardly cause harm to him." Hiss. Joshua and Samuel took a breath at the same time. Looking at each other at a loss, Logan was very calm, staring at the big guy and said, "It's really the genes of the red tank." When he saw the big guy just now, he had some guesses. Although the other party's body shape was very similar to the red tank, it was not the red tank that Logan knew, so he guessed that this was a product bred with the genes of the red tank. "What should we do now?" Joshua subconsciously took a few steps back. Roar, but without waiting for a response, the big guy roared fiercely, violently swept away the shrapnel attached to his body, stretched out his hand to grab the wall, and with a slight pull of his huge palm, a huge piece of wall was instantly pulled out by him, and thrown towards Logan and his group. The several-meter-high wall quickly attacked them. Logan flashed out, pulled Samuel up and successfully avoided the wall. The huge wall hit the ground like a cannonball, and a huge pit was instantly smashed into the ground, and the surface trembled. "Damn it!" Samuel turned his head in fear and looked at the huge dent behind him, saying in despair, "If this goes on, we will be smashed into meat paste sooner or later." Josh and Donald, who were not far away, were not the targets of the wall, but the wall that could easily smash people into meat paste still made them feel palpitations. "James, his weakness is at the back of his head, and that helmet can't stop your steel claws." Donald stared at the big guy's head and reminded him, this big guy inherited the ability of the red tank, but he was not a perfect experimental subject. His back of the head was a weak point, and the self-healing ability of that area was also very weak. The reason why he had to wear such a thick helmet was to protect the weakness of the back of his head from being hurt. It's just that although the defense of the helmet can resist any armor-piercing bullets, it can't stop the steel claws of adamantium alloy. Steel claws. What steel claws? Samuel and Josh couldn't help looking at each other. Both of them were confused and didn't understand what Donald was talking about. Logan stood there, a little hesitant. Once Wolverine's identity was exposed here, it would be a small matter if Samuel and Josh knew it, but if Hydra knew it, it would be a big trouble. "Hurry up!" Donald suddenly shouted, "Hydra support is coming soon, and then none of us can escape." Roar! When Logan hesitated, the big guy patted his chest and roared again. He seemed to have seen who was the strongest among the few people, and rushed towards Logan with his iron fist raised. Looking at the big guy who was rushing like a truck, Logan gritted his teeth, his face was cold, his fists clenched, and he took a long deep breath. Clang! The steel claws were ejected instantly. The fully ejected silver-white steel claws continued to radiate dazzling light under the afterglow of the setting sun. "James. Is he Wolverine?" Samuel stared blankly at Logan's golden back reflected in the sunset, staring at the steel claws under his fists, thinking of the drawing just now, and his expression was dull for a moment. Chapter 33 Fierce Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. James is Wolverine. Samuel stared at Logan's steel claws with wide eyes. "I see." Search TWKAN on Google. After being shocked, Joshua suddenly realized that the boss asked him to tell James because of his special status. It's just that he never thought that James would be a mutant, and also Wolverine, a mutant that many biologists would like to recreate at the expense of so many resources. When he was shocked, the big man had already rushed forward. The boulder-like iron fist kept waving, hitting Logan hard with the sound of howling wind. The huge fist was enough to easily flatten any piece of steel with one punch. Logan's eyes were cold, and he looked at the fist that was bigger than his head. Without any panic, he ducked sideways with his agile body, and the fist almost touched his clothes. Bang! Sticking to Logan's body, his fist hit the big tree next to him. The half-meter-thick towering tree shattered instantly, countless sawdust flew out, and the hurricane blew up Logan's clothes. The big tree was instantly blown away with a bang, overwhelming a nearby forest. Logan looked at the remaining tree stumps on the ground, and couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He looked at the big man approaching him with a stern expression. "I didn't expect that this counterfeit was so powerful." While thinking, the big man suddenly raised his foot and kicked out Logan with his huge sole. Boom! Now that Logan's self-healing factor has not been fully restored, he naturally does not dare to take a hard hit, and jumps away from this powerful offensive. The big man's foot fell into the air and landed heavily on the ground. For a moment, the ground rippled like an earthquake. This kick instantly opened a deep pit in the ground, causing gravel and soil to fly freely. Fark. Samuel looked at the deep pit created by the big man in shock. Even though he was more than 10 meters away from the big man, he could still clearly feel the vibration from the ground. This guy is like a human tank. Samuel spoke in astonishment, the fear in his eyes difficult to hide, and when he looked at Logan again, his face was full of worry. Red Tank is the most powerful of all the genes I have seen so far. Donald did not hesitate to praise him at all, staring at the big man who kept waving his limbs. Although Red Tank's overall strength among mutants is not as good as those of top figures such as Magneto, in terms of strength alone, I am afraid that no one in the entire mutant group can surpass him, not even Colossus. The big man bred through the Red Tank gene is not inferior to the Red Tank in strength. Now, if Logan is actually attacked by him, he will be seriously injured even if he does not die. Compared with the Hulk, who is stronger, Samuel suddenly asked out of curiosity. People of his generation had very little understanding of mutants. He had never heard of the Red Tank, but the name of the Hulk was so familiar that he couldn't help but compare the two for a while. Forehead. Donald was speechless for a moment, and when he was about to answer, there was a sudden bang behind him. Hydra's people are catching up. Joshier looked behind him, his expression suddenly panicked. I saw Hydra soldiers rushing towards this side quickly. With dozens of troops, they were simply unable to resist. Alert! Donald yelled, shrank back behind a big tree, glanced at the battle between Logan and the big guy, and said solemnly, we have to buy Logan time. If we don't deal with the big guy, we have no way out. After saying that, he raised his pistol and pulled the trigger on Hydra's pursuers. Joshua and Samuel also hid behind the tree trunks and kept fighting back against the Hydra soldiers. Bang bang bang. The shooting skills of the three of them were all good. With a few bullets, they knocked down several Hydra soldiers again. Seeing this, the other soldiers did not dare to charge indiscriminately. They hurriedly hid behind nearby tree trunks and continued to fight back at Samuel and the others. Bang bang bang. Both sides went back and forth. Bullets kept passing through. Although Hydra has more people and is extremely capable of suppressing fire, Samuel and the others were able to rely on their precise marksmanship to force the other side to dare not show their heads easily, and they reached a stalemate for a while. Meanwhile, the battle between Logan and Big Man continues. Although the Big Man is powerful, his flexibility is slightly lacking. Logan uses his agile body to constantly avoid the opponent's attacks, while his eyes are looking for opportunities to attack. After the big guy missed a punch, Logan saw the opportunity and jumped up high on the high wall, like a hungry wolf pouncing on food, and pounced on the big guy with his steel claws. The silver-white steel claws stabbed the big man's back without hesitation, with bursts of red light echoing under the red sunset. Clang, clang, clang. A harsh metal collision suddenly sounded in the jungle. Logan's steel claws were unable to penetrate the defense of the big man, and only made a few shallow scratches on the surface of the armor. Bang! The big man quickly turned around and punched, and the huge fist hit Logan's chest with the dull wind. When Logan saw this, his pupils shrank sharply, and he quickly retracted his fists and crossed them to resist. Boom! The huge fist hit Logan's arm hard, and the strong impact instantly knocked Logan away, hitting the high wall behind like a cannonball. Click. The surface of the wall was cracked with countless cracks, and the thick high wall was about to collapse. The pain from behind made Logan's mouth twisted a little. Even though he was made of a skeleton of atom and alloy, his old body felt a kind of pain like a fracture when it was hit hard. Hiss! Samuel couldn't help but take a breath when he saw this scene. Just looking at this punch, he felt a chill on his back and couldn't help asking, can James deal with that big guy? For a moment, he felt vaguely that Wolverine didn't seem to be that strong. Was it a bit of a waste for Donald and his team to spend so much money to replicate him? Donald on the other side frowned and said in silence, he is a little old, but it should be fine. In fact, he didn't know for sure. After all, Logan in his prime had some difficulty dealing with the Red Tank. He had the hope of winning only by relying on the almost immortal self-healing factor and the atom and alloy steel claws. Moreover, Logan is too old now. Although the adamantium claws still exist, he is too old to outlast the big guy. Logan struggled to pull himself off the wall, leaving a clear sunken figure on the wall, but before he could react, the ground shook again, and the big guy rushed towards Logan again. Logan was startled, looking at the big guy approaching quickly, and suddenly he stretched out his steel claws to cut the high wall. The sharp steel claws instantly scratched a burst of dust. Logan swept it fiercely, and the dust rushed directly to the big guy's eyes. The big guy was unable to block it in time, and his eyes were covered with dust and he couldn't open his eyes. Logan's expression condensed, and he quickly seized the opportunity, rushed towards the big guy, and swung his steel claws without hesitation. Swish! The sharp steel claws, like cutting tofu, directly cut off the big guy's arm easily. The huge arm tumbled in the air and suddenly fell to the ground, and warm blood gushed out from the broken limb instantly. Ah! The intense pain instantly made the big guy scream, and the roar continued to echo in the deep forest. Logan looked grim, stepped on the ground without hesitation, and his body tumbled in the air. The steel claws directly pierced into the big guy's neck without any defense, and then slashed hard. Puff! The huge head flew up instantly, and the empty neck spurted out warm blood like a fountain, soaking Logan's body. He stretched out his foot again and lightly tapped the big guy's back, using the force to do a backflip, and landed steadily, with blood dripping on his body. Behind him, the big guy without a head collapsed like a boulder, completely without any vitality. Chapter 34 Captain America on the Streets of Santa Fe. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Swish! Blood splattered everywhere, and the blood gushing out of the big guy's huge body was several meters high, and the whole ground was completely dyed red. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Huh! Logan put one hand on his waist and gasped heavily. His rough breathing sounded as if he had just been relieved from suffocation. His body standing in the sunset looked a little hunched, and sweat mixed with blood kept dripping. The violent explosion made this old body really difficult to resist. The soreness from his limbs made it difficult for him to make any large movements. If he persisted for a few more rounds, it would be hard to say who would fall, but, fortunately, the big guy didn't have the strength to persist. Logan looked back at the big guy's body, the headless body, and as the blood flowed, the burly body gradually turned white. Fortunately, it's just a clone. Logan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It's obvious that the cloning ability of the Hydra organization needs to be strengthened. The strength of this big guy is far inferior to that of the real Red Tank. If the real Red Tank is here, Logan doesn't think he can compete with him now. Bang, bang, bang. The gunshots on the other side gradually became sparse, and gradually there was no movement. Under the superb marksmanship of Donald and his men, the Hydra group of soldiers had no ability to counterattack. Even if their weapons were better than Donald and his men, the gap in combat skills could not be made up by equipment at all. Not long after Logan killed the big guy, they also ended the battle on their side, and the group of soldiers all turned into corpses lying in the jungle. Let's go, these are just the advance team, and their support will arrive soon. We have to leave here quickly before they completely surround us. Donald put the pistol into the holster on his waist, patted Logan on the shoulder, and then glanced at the big guy who was dead on the ground. The smooth fracture on the neck made him look more fearful of Logan. Samuel and Josh, who were responsible for the follow-up shots and ensuring that no Hydra soldiers were left alive, also came up. James, your back is bleeding. Samuel noticed Logan's back the first time. The cheap suit had been torn, and the torn back was shocking to look at. Scarlet blood kept oozing out of the flesh and dripping down the torn clothes to the ground. This was the result of the big guy smashing him against the high wall just now. The violent collision made his back instantly bloody, and if he didn't have an adamantium skeleton, if he was an ordinary person, his body would have been shattered under such a collision. I guess those soldiers should have brought first aid kits. Josh quickly turned his head to look at the bodies of Hydra soldiers in the distance. Generally, such a fully armed organization would be equipped with a certain amount of first aid kits before traveling. Logan reached out to stop Josh from searching the body. There's no time, we have to evacuate quickly. Then your injury. Samuel looked at Logan's back worriedly. It's okay, it will heal on its own. Logan gritted his teeth and endured the severe pain, turned and walked towards the main entrance of the laboratory. Let's go, Hydra's car must be nearby. After searching, several people successfully found the off-road motorcycle hidden by Hydra near the laboratory before it became completely dark. and quickly returned to the town. After arriving in the town, several people gave up the truck provided by the Lawrence family. After all, they could be said to be fleeing now, and the speed of the truck was really not worthy of the word escape. Donald bought a car from a town resident at a price more than twice the price, and several people drove the faster car and drove back to Santa Fe overnight. At the same time, near the laboratory deep in the forest, several off-road motorcycles roared and stopped steadily in front of the bodies of Hydra's soldiers. A group of people got off the motorcycle, ignoring the scattered corpses, and walked straight to the beheaded big guy. One cut off the arm, one cut off the head. Although it is a clone, the density of the flesh is difficult for bullets to penetrate. The weapon with such lethality must be a blade made of vibranium or adamantium. A man squatted beside the big guy, carefully examining the body, and added at the end, "There are claw marks on the armor, it seems to be adamantium." The leading man listened to the report of his subordinates, stared at the corpse and said coldly, "It seems that they have cultivated a new Wolverine." The gray car whizzed on the highway in the dark night. Compared with the speed of the truck, the car was obviously much lighter. Samuel in the driver's seat turned his head from time to time to look at Logan in the co-pilot's seat, worried that the terrible injury on his back would kill him on the way back. But what surprised him was that the healing speed of Logan's back injury was simply unimaginable for ordinary people. When they just left the town, blood was still dripping from Logan's back, and the blood completely stained the passenger seat red. But after walking out for a while, the bleeding rate quickly slowed down. Until now, there was no blood flowing out of the scars on his back, and some parts even had a thick layer of blood scabs. These scenes made Samuel couldn't help but marvel. After all, if such injuries were placed on ordinary people, they would not be able to stop the bleeding without going to the hospital for hundreds of stitches. Donald in the back seat noticed Samuel's surprise and snorted, "Don't be so curious. This guy is a mutant with a self-healing factor. When he was young, he could recover quickly from injuries like this, even from nuclear bomb explosions." As he spoke, he suddenly laughed and said to Logan, "But now he is so old that even this little scratch takes so long to recover." While speaking, he even reached out and gently poked the rotten flesh on Logan's back, causing Logan to gasp and quickly turn back to glare at him coldly. Donald quickly leaned back, showing a harmless smile, and raised his hands to surrender. Logan ignored him and turned to glance at Samuel and Josh. After a moment of silence, he said, "I hope you can keep this a secret." Samuel said quickly, "Don't worry. You've saved me several times. I'll keep this a secret even if I die." Josh nodded heavily behind him, "Don't worry." Logan turned back and looked at the night view outside the window. He knew that these two people would definitely keep it a secret for him at the moment. After all, they still had to work for the Lawrence family. Exposing their own secrets would be equivalent to exposing the Lawrence family's knowledge of Wolverine's secrets. Whether it was Wolverine or the Lawrence family, they couldn't afford to offend them. After a night of rushing, the few people finally entered the territory of Santa Fe City. Returning here made Samuel and Josh feel a sense of relief inexplicably. "The gas is running low. We need to refuel." Samuel looked at the dashboard of the car. Half an hour ago, it had already broadcast a warning that the fuel tank was about to run out. Logan nodded. He had changed into a set of temporary clothes bought when he stopped at the service area, a set of t-shirts and sweatpants, and washed all the blood off his body with mineral water. While Samuel was waiting in line to refuel the car, Logan also got off the car and bought a pack of cigarettes at the convenience store opposite the gas station. He stood in the alley next to the convenience store and started smoking. As soon as he exhaled a puff of smoke, a voice suddenly came from outside the alley. "Tony, are you sure this instrument is working?" The familiar voice instantly startled Logan's attention. He quickly hid his body in the dark and quietly poked his head out to look carefully in the direction of the sound. After seeing the source of the sound, Logan's pupils suddenly shrank. "Why are they here?" Not far away, it was Steve and Natasha. Although they were all in casual clothes, their faces were too recognizable. Chapter 35: A plan that kills two birds with one stone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I can't believe that you, an old antique from 70 years ago, are questioning a top MIT student. Steve listened to Tony's unhappy response in the earphones and said quickly, no, it's just that until now, your instrument has had no effect. He looked at the instrument in his hand. It was a scanning device the size of a mobile phone. Wave lines were constantly scanning out on the screen, like a small radar system. According to the instruction manual, as long as the laser cannon is fired, even if it was fired 2 days ago, the remaining energy can be locked by this thing. But after they walked around, there was no signal from the instrument. This made Steve couldn't help but pat the instrument, wondering if it was broken. Don't worry, as long as someone activates the laser cannon within 10 kilometers, the detector will immediately perform positioning and tracking. Tony, who was far away in his villa in Los Angeles, said with a little sleepiness, before the laser cannon is activated, you can just go shopping in that city. Can't you increase the monitoring range? Natasha couldn't help but complain that the detection range was only 10 kilometers, so they had to wander around the city with a device in their hands in the middle of the night. The chaotic night in Santa Fe really made her feel sick. Ma'am, that gun is a cutting-edge weapon of the Chitauri, and it has strict protection protocols. It's perfect that I can do this. Besides, I'm on vacation now, and I could have had a wonderful night, but Nick Fury called me in the middle of the night while I was on vacation, just to ask for a detector. Oh my God, doesn't he know that scientists' brains need to be carefully cultivated in a good sleep environment? I'm being very kind by not suing him for disturbing the public. Okay Tony, I'll call you when you have time. Steve quickly hung up the call before Tony could continue to complain. As a beep of hang-up came from the communicator, Steve couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. This guy always comes up with a bunch of crap. He looked at the testing instrument the size of a mobile phone in his hand with a look of helplessness on his face. Tony's complaints almost made his ears feel numb. In the alley, Logan's keen hearing clearly heard the conversation between the two. Although there were only a few words, the information conveyed allowed him to clarify the reason why Steve and Natasha appeared in Santa Fe City. It seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. attaches great importance to that laser gun, and even requires the two Avengers to personally carry out tasks such as monitoring. Fury must have hoped that after the weapon was locked, Steve and Natasha could take the gun back as soon as possible. It seems that so far, those guys have not activated that weapon. Steve and Steve walked together on the silent streets late at night. They are very cautious. If it were me, I would probably have to test it. Natasha felt bored. Such a monitoring task was too tedious. Keep looking. You have to find it before they use it to cause greater trouble. Steve shrugged helplessly. The voices of Steve and Natasha gradually faded away, and Logan walked out of the alley and looked at the direction the two left with a solemn expression. Looks like it's time to leave. He knew that since S.H.I.E.L.D. had found Santa Fe City, it was only a matter of time before it locked onto the Lawrence family. The confrontation between the Lawrence family and S.H.I.E.L.D. is inevitable. The ending is obviously foreseeable. The Lawrence family will definitely be wiped out by S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, this is just a family organization entrenched in Santa Fe City, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is a behemoth that can affect the entire world. He must leave quickly before they have a bigger conflict to avoid being involved in this storm. Logan stamped out the burned cigarette butts and was about to turn around and leave when he suddenly thought of the abandoned factory in the suburbs. What he was sure of was that the Lawrence family had been placing spies near the factory to monitor the professor and Caliban at all times. If he wanted to leave, he had to solve this problem in advance, otherwise, the Lawrence family members might make a crazy interception on him before he left the city, and the current intervention of the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't seem to be all bad for him. It arouses conflict between the two parties, allowing the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. to deal with the Lawrence family, and he can take advantage of the opportunity to escape. Logan's eyes lit up, and a dangerous but very effective plan gradually formed in his mind. If Steve and the others want to lock down the Lawrence family, they have to let the laser cannon make some noise on the Lawrence family's territory. A few days after the goods were delivered to the Lawrence family, Logan was certain that Chris and the others had not had time to transfer or resell the goods. The weapons of the Chitauri are most likely still in the Lawrence family. As long as he finds a way to make that thing ring, he can take advantage of the chaos, take the professor and Caliban, pick up Laura and leave Santa Fe City immediately. James, it's time to go. Joshua, who walked out of the convenience store, suddenly interrupted Logan's thinking. he bought a few bottles of Coke and threw one to Logan. Logan nodded, took the Coke, gave up thinking for the time being, suppressed the light in his eyes, and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." At this time, Samuel also filled up the car with gas, several people smoked cigarettes and drank Coca-Cola, and went straight back to the Lawrence family's logistics warehouse. Although it was late at night and the street seemed very deserted, the logistics warehouse of the Lawrence family was still brightly lit. However, there were no workers or trucks to be seen. Obviously, these lights were reserved for them. After parking the car in the garage, several people opened the door and got out. "Logan, it feels really good to work with an idol for the first time. You know, seeing you chop off that guy's head with your steel claws really makes me excited, just like the superhero I have always admired suddenly using superpowers in front of me." Donald walked up to Logan, looked at Logan's face, and smiled. "I really hope that we can have the opportunity to cooperate more in the future, before your steel claws can be extended. After all, although those clones have your abilities, they don't have your glorious past that people look forward to." As he said, Donald reached out and patted Logan on the shoulder, and was about to turn around and leave, but after taking a few steps, he turned back and added with a smile, "By the way, about Gabriella, I sincerely hope that you will not disappoint a fan. If you have any news about her, please tell me. Okay, I hope that there will be no estrangement between us because of that woman and child." After that, Donald walked out of the garage without looking back. Logan stared at his back and remained silent. The conversation between the two made Joshua and Samuel confused. They didn't know many things, and they just felt that the two seemed to be talking in secret. At this time, Samuel's mobile phone received a text message. After taking a look, he turned to Logan and Joshua and said, "Let's go, the black guy asked us to go over, he is waiting for us in the office." Chapter 36 The Chitauri's Advanced Weapons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Taiwan Novel Network. In the office, Martin, a black man, sat in front of the office chair and took out 3 envelopes from the drawer and threw them to Logan and the others. Remuneration, 20,000. Martin was very frugal with words and didn't say a word of nonsense. Samuel and Josh took their envelopes, opened them and counted the green US dollars inside, with a look of interest, and in their hearts they had already estimated where to spend the night, but Logan was not so elegant. After holding the envelope and taking a rough look at its thickness, he stuffed the envelope into his pocket. At this time, his mind was full of the weapons of the Chitauri. If he remembered correctly, the weapons were temporarily stored in the logistics warehouse in this area, and maybe it was now placed somewhere in the warehouse below. As long as he could find a way to make it make some noise, maybe he could leave with the professor and Caliban early tomorrow morning. Thinking of this, Logan was ready to move, but he did not rashly go to find the weapons directly. Instead, he followed Joshua and Samuel out of the warehouse, and the 3 of them went to a bar near the warehouse to drink. This is an all-night bar. The hot dancers, the blasting sound system, and the colorful lights keep the whole bar crazy at all times. The 3 of them admired the beauties dancing on the steel pipes in front of the bar, and poured beer into their mouths to vent their fatigue along the way. Nearly an hour later, Samuel and Joshua were already a little drunk, and began to speak some incomprehensible nonsense. Logan took this opportunity to run out of the bar under the pretext of going to the toilet and quickly returned to the logistics warehouse. This logistics warehouse is very large, with surveillance everywhere, and guards patrolling with guns from time to time. The Lawrence family has a lot of connections in Santa Fe City, and they are all black and white. The guards under their industry can shoot at any stranger who breaks into the warehouse without scruples. Logan hid in the darkness, carefully avoiding surveillance, bypassing the patrolling guards, and sticking to the outer wall of the warehouse to find a way to enter the warehouse. He wanted to provoke a conflict between the Lawrence family and S.H.I.E.L.D., but before the two sides officially fought, he didn't want his intention to escape to be discovered by Chris. Damn it! After circling the warehouse, Logan couldn't help but curse in a low voice. The main door and back door of the warehouse were all locked, and they were all equipped with very advanced alarm locks. As long as there was any action of prying or forcible destruction, its alarm could sound within a radius of 5 kilometers, attracting a large number of guards. Logan looked up helplessly at the ventilation duct. This is the only entrance to the interior of the warehouse now. Extending his steel claws and inserting them into the cracks in the wall, Logan quickly climbed up to the ventilation duct on the top of the warehouse, removed the blockade outside the ventilation duct, successfully. Entered the duct, and crouched in the narrow passage. Through the ventilation holes in the passage, Logan could clearly see that the warehouse was brightly lit. In addition to the surveillance cameras in every corner, there were also guards patrolling regularly. Taking advantage of the gap when the guards walked by, Logan removed a ventilation hole and quietly entered the warehouse, carefully avoiding the guards and surveillance cameras. Logan finally found the boxes of BU-26 and BU-27 stored in a corner of the warehouse, but although he found the target, Logan still couldn't act rashly. This location is too tricky, that he couldn't help but complain in a low voice. The two boxes of goods were surrounded by surveillance cameras, and there was no blind spot for him to get close. Staring at the surveillance cameras around the goods, Logan thought for a while, then turned his head to look at the surveillance room on the second floor of the warehouse. He had been to this warehouse before, and entered here under the name of delivery, so he was familiar with the environment here. Quietly came to the door of the surveillance room and carefully pushed the door open. There was only one guard in the monitoring room. Perhaps it was boring to guard the rows of monitoring equipment. The guy yawned continuously and didn't even notice Logan quietly coming behind him. Logan stretched out his palm and slashed at his neck without hesitation, knocking him out directly. He put on his coat and then started to operate on the computer. After some tinkering, the monitoring screen was completely frozen and could no longer record any real pictures. After solving these, Logan bypassed the guard again and returned to the two boxes of goods. Without the monitoring, Logan completely let go of his hands and feet. He opened the BU-26 box as if nothing had happened, reached out to take out the laser cannon inside, and couldn't help looking up and down. How do I start this thing? Logan looked at the laser cannon full of technology and was in a dilemma for a while. The slender gun looked to be about 1.3 meters long, with a gold and silver color. There was no magazine, but there was a muzzle at the front and a close combat blade at the bottom. However, there was no safety or loading device on the body. Rather than calling it a gun, Logan felt that it was more like a cold weapon with a trigger device. Just as Logan was carefully examining the weapon, a loud bang suddenly came from behind. "Who are you?" A guard raised his gun to Logan's back and pressed the alarm on his chest at the same time. With the piercing alarm sound, dozens of guards rushed from all directions and surrounded Logan in an instant. The black muzzles of dozens of pistols were all locked on him. Logan looked at these guards and sighed helplessly. "Everyone, calm down," Logan said while holding the laser cannon. In fact, he just wanted to come over and fire the laser cannon and end it, but now it seems that it can't be so easy to end it. "Put the things down," a guard spoke to Logan in a stern voice, looking at the laser cannon in his hand with fear. Although he didn't know what it was, the appearance of that thing made him sense the breath of danger. "What are you talking about?" Logan looked at the laser cannon in his hand, raised it and aimed it at the guard, and then confronted with dozens of pistols. Seeing this scene, everyone panicked instantly and subconsciously took a step back. "Put the things down quickly," the guard roared and pointed the pistol at Logan's head, ready to shoot at any time. "Okay." Logan shrugged and pulled the trigger decisively. Click. As the sound of the trigger being pulled rang out, all the guards' faces suddenly changed, and they had no intention of resisting at all. They quickly fell to the ground in fear, holding their heads tightly with both hands. Chris told them more than once that the things in the box were very important and dangerous. Buzz. The laser cannon made a buzzing sound, but it only made a buzzing sound. Logan looked at the laser cannon in his hand without any movement, and was stunned for a moment. "Fuck, is it a dud?" Logan didn't know whether it was the gun's problem or his own problem. After all, he had only seen this thing in movies and had no idea how to use it. The guards lying on the ground raised their heads after seeing no movement, looking at the laser cannon that only made a buzzing sound but did not attack. The fear on their faces disappeared instantly. "Fuck, kill him." The guard stood up suddenly, his face full of anger, feeling that he had been fooled, and raised his pistol without hesitation to pull the trigger. Boom. But before he could completely pull the trigger, the buzzing sound of the laser cannon stopped abruptly, and at the same time, a brilliant blue light suddenly gathered at the muzzle. The sudden bright light was particularly dazzling, making it impossible to look directly at it. Even if you close your eyes, the blue light seems to be able to penetrate your eyelids and poke your pupils. The dim warehouse was instantly enveloped by the blue light, as if the entire warehouse had turned blue. Boom. The brilliant blue beam of light instantly shot out and hit the guard in front of him. In just one encounter, the guard's body seemed to be bombarded by a shell, and his whole body exploded instantly, with blood and flesh splattering and broken bones flying everywhere. Chapter 37 Plan Failed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Swish, swish, swish. Logan kept pulling the trigger of the laser cannon, and a brilliant blue laser shell kept spraying out from the muzzle, instantly blowing the guards to pieces and exploding their bodies. Blood spread like rain, carrying minced meat and hitting the faces of the surrounding guards. These horrifying scenes completely frightened the surrounding guards, who were stunned and stood there in astonishment. Under the strong firepower suppression of the laser cannon, these guards had no room to fight back at all. In just a few minutes, all the surrounding guards were completely wiped out. Logan held the hot laser cannon and looked at the tragic scene of minced meat on the ground, with a little astonishment in his eyes. It is worthy of being the high-end equipment of the Chitauri, and its power is much greater than imagined. At this time, Logan heard the hurried footsteps coming from outside. Obviously, the movement just now attracted the attention of the patrol team outside, and they were rushing here in large numbers. Logan didn't want to get entangled with them anymore, so he quickly threw away the hot laser cannon and quickly followed the original route, escaping from the vent. While all the guards were attracted to the warehouse, he quickly left, dusted off his body, and quickly returned to the tavern. James, come, drink. As soon as he returned to his original seat, Samuel put his arm around his shoulders and kept holding a glass for Logan, reeking of alcohol and mumbling incoherently. He was so drunk that he couldn't get any drunker. The same was true for Josh on the other side. He was drunk and didn't notice that Logan had been out for a long time, and kept pulling Logan to drink. Logan calmed down a little, asked the bartender to fill his glass, raised the glass and laughed. Drink. But when he was drinking, his eyes always habitually glanced out the door, and his mind was not on the glass at all. He knew that the logistics warehouse must have been in a mess, and even Chris might be on his way. After all, such a big thing happened. Not only did many guards die, but the weapons were almost stolen. The Lawrence family must be furious, but what worried Logan was not the anger of the Lawrence family. He was very cautious in this matter, and the Lawrence family should not find out that it was his doing in a short time. What worried him was that if this place was not within the range of Tony's detector, Steve and Natasha would not be able to detect the fluctuations of the weapon activation, which would be troublesome. The range of 10 kilometers is not small, but it cannot cover the entire Santa Fe City. Not to mention that this is the suburbs of Santa Fe City, and now that such a thing has happened, the Lawrence family will definitely keep a close eye on the weapons, and may even transfer them in time. He has no chance to activate the laser cannon again. Now he can only pray that Steve and others can detect the activation of the weapon. Just now, just as Logan was drinking with his heart in his heart, the mobile phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. Looking down, it was Chris's call. Hello. Logan answered the phone and pretended to be a little drunk. Something happened. Chris roared in anger. Someone tried to hijack the warehouse in the north, and the target was the weapons you brought back. The weapons were lost? Logan asked knowingly. No, the weapons are still there. Chris roared, but he killed more than a dozen of our guards. With the weapon that I haven't used. And I believe they will come again. The people of the Juarez family will not give up so willingly. Juarez family? Logan was slightly stunned, but soon reacted. Did they do it? Obviously, Chris had already thought of a scapegoat for Logan. There is no direct evidence. Chris said calmly, but I am sure it is them. I have strengthened the guards here, but it is not enough. I need you to come over. After a pause, he asked again, why is it so noisy over there? And where are Samuel and the others? I called them, but the call didn't go through. I was drinking with them in the pub. Logan glanced around the noisy pub. They may not have heard the phone ring. Damn, my warehouse was attacked, and you are still drinking? Chris roared, and continued, let them come together. This batch of weapons is very dangerous now. Logan was silent for a while, and glanced at Samuel and Josh, who were already drunk and lying on the table. They have difficulty standing up now. Fuck, why are you letting me down at this time? Chris roared angrily again. Don't worry about them, I need a strong helper now." Logan was silent for a while. In fact, he didn't want to go to the warehouse at this time. After all, if the signal to activate the laser gun was intercepted by Steve and others, they would probably be rushing to the warehouse. He didn't want to have a conflict with the Avengers again, but after thinking about it, he couldn't think of any reason to refuse, so he could only nod helplessly and said, "I'll be there right away." After hanging up the phone, Logan sighed, drank the wine in the glass, and got up to go to the logistics warehouse. The guards around the warehouse have obviously increased, and there are teams patrolling around the warehouse. The level of strictness can even say that a mouse can't get in. Even Logan was interrogated by the guards. After confirming that Chris called him, he was allowed to pass and came to the office outside the warehouse. Nothing was captured in the surveillance, but before he entered the door, Logan heard Chris's roar, "Do I raise you for nothing?" How could he get in so easily? Logan knocked on the door and walked in. Chris was sitting in the boss's chair. Opposite him stood several warehouse managers, burying their heads in silence. "Boss." Logan stepped forward and stood beside several managers, greeting Chris. Chris's face was full of anger at this time. After seeing Logan coming, he calmed down a little and said sternly, "I need you to stay here tonight. You must protect the safety of the weapons. Anyone who breaks in private will be killed without mercy. Don't let those bastards of the Juarez family have a chance." "Okay." Although he was unwilling in his heart, Logan had no choice but to nod and agree. After Chris cursed at the managers, he got up and left. Logan stayed here all night, but the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. did not appear as expected. This night was extremely quiet. It was almost dawn, but there was still no movement, which made Logan a little worried. Could it be that Steve and the others had walked out of the monitoring area and his plan had failed? Logan frowned and subconsciously turned his head to look at the 2 boxes of weapons. Chris did not temporarily transfer them, and now the 2 boxes of weapons are still quietly placed in the warehouse. Logan hesitated a little, whether to find another opportunity to activate the weapons again, but this idea lasted until the next morning, when the sky was slightly bright, and it was not implemented. Because after this happened, the Lawrence family had too many guards. Every few minutes, a patrol team passed by the weapon, and Logan had no chance to activate it, and even if he activated it, he would probably be discovered by the guards, and he would definitely be exposed at that time. Chapter 38: Escape and Resistance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the end, the laser cannon was not activated again until Logan went home to rest. Under Chris's arrangements, the security of the entire warehouse was almost comparable to that of the White House, and Logan really had no chance to take action. It was also very quiet throughout the night. Perhaps Steve and the others did not receive the signal, or perhaps they did, but chose to wait for support. In short, Logan did not see the imagined conflict happen. Logan could only wait and see for the time being, waiting for opportunities to arise. The wait lasted several days. During this period, Logan never received a call from Chris again. The Lawrence family was obviously still wary of him. After adding enough guards, they no longer arranged any errands for him, and everything returned to the way it was before. Of peace, however, in the past, Logan had to run for money and had to take Uber day and night. But now he has enough wealth and is not so busy. He can spare some time to chat with the professor at home and treat him more. The careful care also made the professor's spirit improve slightly. However, although it seemed very peaceful on the surface, Logan was still keenly aware that the Lawrence family seemed to be in big trouble. When he went to Santa Fe City to purchase supplies, he always found that there were far fewer people on the streets than usual. Compared with the noisy streets of the past, which were crowded with people, the past few days had seemed particularly quiet. There were even news broadcasts of some robberies. Much less. Logan also noticed that as long as it is Lawrence's industry, whether it is near a hotel, factory, or several logistics warehouses, a large number of guards are patrolled. Ordinary people can't even get close to the warehouses. In serious cases, the guards will directly lift gun drive. With such a big battle, Logan can be sure that the Lawrence family must be troubled by troubles now, and the entire family has entered a state of full alert. A solemn atmosphere is permeating the entire Santa Fe City. Although Logan is also somewhat curious about the troubles of the Lawrence family, he has not asked anyone. He does not want to get involved in this muddy water. Besides, the more chaotic the Lawrence family is, the better. A chaotic environment can always bring him troubles. More opportunities for escape. After a few days of such a solemn atmosphere, on the way home from a shopping trip, Logan finally found an opportunity. After Chris found out that he was living in the old factory area, there were more passers-by around the old factory area, and there were also some vehicles parked on the roadside. Needless to say, these were the informants of the Lawrence family, but now, all these eyeliners have disappeared without a trace, and the area around the factory has once again returned to its previous sparse appearance. Logan even drove around the factory several times to observe the situation around him, and was finally sure that those people had retreated. For a moment, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. It seemed that the Lawrence family was really in trouble. Then the escape plan seems to be on the agenda. Ding dong, suddenly a message came in on the phone. Logan picked up the phone and looked at it. It was a letter from Samuel. James, where are you? At home. What, you have another mission? Logan typed in response. No. Samuel responded quickly, I guess Chris won't be able to arrange tasks for us in a short time. He is in big trouble now. What do you mean? Isn't it just that the warehouse was hijacked? It would be nice if there were more guards. Besides, the weapons are not lost, so it is not a big problem for the Lawrence family. Logan wanted to get some information out of Samuel, but he didn't ask explicitly. He wanted Samuel to tell it himself. It's not about the warehouse. Samuel took the initiative to reveal the news. It's the official people. They seem to have offended the official people. Now the government departments have been investigating the Lawrence family. I think this attitude is quite fierce. In a short time there shouldn't be a solution. Before Logan could respond, Samuel sent another text message. After all, we did something for Chris. I don't know if this matter will have an impact on us, but it's always right to pay attention during this time. More besides, you are. Anyway, just be careful and be careful. Logan knew that he was reminding himself not to be found by the authorities. After all, Wolverine's name was still on the wanted list. Thank you, I'll keep an eye on it. After Logan replied to this message, he quickly put down his phone. He suddenly realized that now was the chance to leave. The Lawrence family is entangled in affairs, and some forces secretly covet their big fat. While they have to deal with the officialdom, they have to be careful that their property will not be cannibalized by other forces taking this opportunity. As you can imagine, Mr. Lawrence and Chris are so overwhelmed now that they don't even have time to pay attention to him, Wolverine, and this is the best time for him to escape. Thinking of this, Logan quickly drove home. As soon as he entered the door, he said to Caliban, who was preparing lunch, "Stop it, pack your luggage, and go and bring the professor out at the same time." Caliban was stunned, looked at Logan packing his luggage in the living room, and asked in confusion, "What are you doing? Is your boss going to change our place to live?" "No." Logan shook his head and continued to look for things that might be used during his escape. He said without raising his head, "We will get rid of the Lawrence family tonight and leave here." Caliban was slightly stunned. After confirming that he heard correctly, he said in surprise, "Are you kidding?" That he was very concerned about his safety and hated that his address would be discovered by Chris and his friends. He felt like someone was pointing a gun at his head and he could be shot in the head at any time, but he didn't expect that the day to get rid of all this would come so soon, and so suddenly. "Yeah." Logan nodded. "The Lawrence family is in big trouble, and he doesn't have time to take care of us now. I'm fed up with this place. You won't regret this decision." Caliban threw down the kitchen utensils and said excitedly, "I'll prepare it now, and it will be ready in half an hour. Don't be so anxious." Logan picked up his wallet. "I have to go to the bank first. Most of the money is in the card, and he must withdraw all the money. After all, on the way to escape, this card is likely to be suspended due to various problems. Even if it is not suspended, Chris can easily find his coordinates through his card swipe records. Using cash can avoid a lot of big troubles." After that, Logan went out without stopping, went to the nearest bank, withdrew all the credit in the card, and then quickly returned to the car, took out his mobile phone to find Gabriella's phone number, and sent a text message to inform her to get ready and meet tonight. However, as soon as the text message was sent, the phone rang quickly. It was Gabriella's call. Looking at the constantly vibrating phone, Logan hesitated for a moment. They had always communicated with each other by text messages before, and had never called each other. This sudden phone ring made him feel a little uneasy. He hesitated to press the answer button and said in a deep voice, "Hello? Uncle Wolf, you really disappoint me." On the other end of the phone, Donald's voice came over, and there was also a woman's painful groan. She tried her best to shout into the phone, "Wolverine, save me and Laura." Chapter 39 To the Rescue, Wolverine is here. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Donald, let them go. Logan clearly heard Gabriella's cry for help. His eyes were instantly covered with anger, and he was holding the phone tightly. "Logan, listen to my advice and stop meddling in other people's business. Your disobedience has already made me very dissatisfied. Don't anger me again." Donald hung up the phone after leaving a cold sentence. Listening to the beep coming from the phone, Logan slapped the steering wheel fiercely, then quickly started the car and rushed towards the address Gabriella had left for him. On the way he dialed Caliban's number. "Hey, Caliban, there's a new situation. I don't have time to explain. You should quickly take the professor and wait for me at the junction of Santa Fe City. Hurry." Caliban on the other end of the phone was obviously worried. Has Chris discovered the escape plan? "No, it's Donald." Logan explained in a deep voice. "That guy is even more difficult to deal with than the Lawrence family. Before he puts his target on us, you should quickly evacuate with the professor, otherwise we won't be able to escape when he takes time out." "I understand." Caliban heard the anxiety in Logan's tone and said quickly, "The professor and I will set off right now." "Yeah." Logan nodded. "You guys wait for me at the border for 2 hours. If you don't see me in 2 hours, don't hesitate. Take the professor to Week Street in Nevada to find Victor. He can give you shelter." "Saber-toothed tiger." Caliban was a little surprised and immediately responded, "I remember, the border is waiting for you, you must be careful." "Yeah, I will." After finishing speaking, Logan hung up the phone and looked at the road ahead with a cold expression. He gritted his teeth and stepped on the accelerator, speeding towards Gabriella's address. Meanwhile, in the hotel, Donald sat on the sofa in the room and looked at Gabriella opposite. The poor Mexican woman was handcuffed behind her back and sitting on a chair. Her hair was messy, her face was covered with bruises, and blood spilled from the corners of her mouth. She gritted her teeth and stared at Donald with strength. Donald sat on the sofa and looked at her, playing with a short knife in his hand, and asked, "Where is the little girl?" When they found Gabriella's address, they rushed over as soon as possible. Unfortunately, they only found Gabriella in the hotel, and Laura was missing. However, Donald was certain that Gabriella and Laura had been living together, and the room was full of traces of their lives. Gabriella stared at Donald, biting her mouth without making any sound. Donald looked at her arrogant look and snorted coldly, "Are you still arrogant? No one can save you until you tell where X-23 is. Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. You stay in our laboratory. However, knowing many of our experimental processes, I believe you don't want to experience the feeling of being used as a test subject." Hearing about the laboratory, fear flashed in Gabriella's eyes, but she still gritted her teeth. "Fuck you, God will not forgive you." Donald was a little impatient and said, "You think there's nothing we can do if we don't tell her?" "I won't give up on that little girl. The higher-ups have always attached great importance to her. Besides, how far can she run without your help?" After a pause, he suddenly sneered, "You don't want to count on Wolverine, do you? Gabriella, please be sensible. Logan is just a damn old wolf now, and he can't protect himself now. Why do you think he will I fight for you?" When Gabriella heard this, her brows furrowed and she looked sad. She knew in her heart that what Donald was probably telling the truth was probably true, but even so she still didn't speak. "Alas." Donald stood up slowly and walked to Gabriella. "You really disappoint me." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his palm and slapped Gabriella hard on the face. Snap. A harsh sound echoed in the room. The palm almost knocked Gabriella unconscious, and one of her teeth was broken by the heavy blow and flew out of her mouth. Donald didn't stop, he raised his foot again and kicked Gabriella hard in the stomach. The strong force directly knocked her away, and the chair behind her collapsed. The pain in her abdomen caused Gabriella to curl up on the ground, with a large mouthful of blood spurting out of her mouth. The physical pain made her shed tears, but she gritted her teeth and sneered, "You'd better kill me, so no one knows the whereabouts of Laura." Bang! Not just when Donald was about to take further action, a scream outside the room instantly cheered him up, and he quickly turned around and rushed out of the room. The room is on the first floor, and outside is the hotel's own courtyard. At this time, the petite Laura was standing in the yard, with a gunman lying at her feet and blood spewing from his chest. Several gunmen surrounded him alertly. "Laura, what are you doing back here?" "Run away." Gabriella in the room saw clearly that it was Laura and immediately panicked. "It seems she can't let you go." When Donald saw Laura, he put a smile on his face again and said, "Laura, follow me back obediently. Nothing will happen here, otherwise." However, before he finished speaking, Laura stretched out her sharp claws with both hands and swooped towards him. Donald reacted quickly and quickly stepped back. The girl missed the steel claw and stuck it on the ground. It instantly cut through the hard cement floor, leaving 4 clear scratch marks. The 2 gunmen next to him reacted quickly and stepped forward to restrain Laura. It was a little difficult for Laura to face the 2 adult Laura. When she was about to resist, the gunman beside her took out the anesthetic he had prepared and stabbed the girl's neck hard. The girl's expression fell into a trance for a moment, her body gradually lost strength, and she stared at Donald with wide eyes. "There will be no rewards for disobedient children." Donald took a breath. This anesthetic would only make her collapse, not fall into a coma. At this time, Laura's eyes were full of resentment, and her clear eyes were filled with murderous intent, but she couldn't exert any strength in her body. Even if the enemy was close at hand, she couldn't do anything. "Take it back," Donald ordered with a cold face. "Where's Gabriella?" One of the gunmen glanced at Gabriella inside the house. At this time, Gabriella's eyes were red, filled with resentment towards Donald and distress for Laura. "Find a place and bury it." Donald glanced indifferently and said. Hearing this, Laura bit her red lips and struggled hard, but with her weak limbs, she could only watch the gunman walk towards Gabriella. "Donald, God will never forgive you." Gabriella looked at the dark muzzle of the gun and couldn't help but feel suffocated. She took one last look at Laura and closed her eyes in despair. Maybe she should have left a week ago instead of trusting Logan. Bang! Suddenly, a black car roared up the road, and the sound of its engine almost filled the entire neighborhood. The front of the car hit Donald hard without hesitation. The terrifying speed made Donald's pupils shrink suddenly and he subconsciously turned over to avoid it. Bang! The car hit the wall hard, and the wall was instantly broken. Bricks were scattered and the front of the car was embedded in it. Click, the car door was opened, and a figure got out of the car. The steel claws in his hands scattered an icy cold light under the scorching sun. He stared at Donald, and the black shadow was stretched and slender, completely covering Donald. "Donald, let them go." Chapter 40: A Bloody Massacre. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He's finally here. Gabriella looked at Logan outside. At this time, the sun was shining, making Logan particularly dazzling. The sharp steel claws made her feel relieved. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. The physical pain and psychological pressure pushed the thin woman to the limit and she completely fainted. "Put them down, otherwise." Logan raised the steel claw, the silver light shone, and the reflected light clearly shone on Donald's eyes, and the dazzling cold light made him squint. "Logan, you give me chills." Donald had a cold face. Originally, he didn't intend to pay attention to the old wolf, but now, the old wolf has gone to a dead end. "Logan, I don't understand why you heroically saved a beauty. Look at you, who is extremely ill, with half your foot in the coffin. These steel claws are quite handsome. It must have taken a lot of effort to fully extend them." Donald snorted disdainfully. The era of mutants has passed. Logan, you are no longer the all-powerful Wolverine. An old wolf entering his twilight years should find a cave and live out your last days. The world has long since they are not mutants. He shook his head and said contemptuously, the Creator created flawed creatures like you, and in the end he wants to destroy you, poor pathetic guys. Whoops. Logan was too lazy to talk nonsense with Donald. He took advantage of the moment when everyone was relaxing when Donald was talking, and his whole body suddenly ejected straight towards the two gunmen who were holding Laura hostage. The figure turned into an afterimage, dust flew under his feet, and he immediately rushed in front of the gunmen. The two gunmen looked shocked and hurriedly raised their guns to shoot. Bang bang bang. Gunshots rang out and bullets flew out. However, Logan just dodged left and right, and the blazing bullets almost passed by his body. The gunmen fired in a panic, only to be slashed by fierce steel claws. The powerful steel claws swept across, and the two arms fell to the ground with a pop. Blood splattered on the ground, stationed in brush. The steel claw swept across, and the gunman's arm fell off instantly, blood spurting out. Ah! The gunman clutched his broken arm in pain, and Laura in front of him took the opportunity to break free and strode to Logan's side. He's getting faster. Not far away, Donald's pupils were constricted. Whether it was an illusion or not, Logan seemed to be getting faster today, compared to the last time he dealt with the red tank clone. His speed has simply gone up a notch. Quick, kill him. After a slight shock, Donald waved quickly. Today, no matter who it is, they must not escape from here. The dozen or so gunmen around him came to their senses instantly, quickly raised their pistols and pulled the trigger without hesitation. More than a dozen pistols were fired together, and the dense bullets were almost comparable to submachine guns. Logan looked at the fire from the muzzles of these guns and without hesitation picked up Laura and quickly rolled and hid behind him. The bullets almost passed by his back at such a fast speed. Now that his self-healing factor has not been fully restored, he does not dare to be too confident. Once he is penetrated by so many bullets, even if he does not die, he will completely lose his combat effectiveness. At that time, the only thing waiting for him is the cold test bed of the laboratory. Bang bang bang. Bullets hit the car, making bursts of piercing sounds. Logan shrank down to avoid the bullets and gasped, this attribute point is really not bad. Strength, 8, original 7. Speed, 9, original 7. Before he came, he was aware of the possible situation, so he added the 3 free points he had accumulated before to strength and agility. Although there are only 1 or 2 points, the improvement is significant, especially the speed. He is now at least a few positions faster than usual. If he had been going at his previous speed, he would have had at least a few more bullet holes in his body, but he was able to avoid them perfectly just now. It seems that the slight increase in attribute points is not as simple as just 1 plus 1. You stay here and I'll deal with them. Logan put Laura on the ground and whispered instructions to her. Because of the anesthesia, Laura couldn't give any response. She just stared at Logan's face with wide eyes. Logan had no time to pay attention to him and carefully stuck his head out to check the situation outside. At this time, the gunman was still shooting fiercely. All the car windows were shattered by bullets, and the car body was full of hot bullet holes, and these gunmen seemed to understand the terror of Logan. They only chose to shoot from a distance to suppress him and did not dare to get close at all. Logan hid behind the car. After thinking for a moment, he took out the pistol from his waist, checked the remaining bullets in the magazine, and then took a deep breath with the gun in both hands. The next second, he stood up suddenly and pulled the trigger with almost no need to aim. Bang! The bullet sprayed out and accurately hit a gunman between the eyebrows. Logan's fingers clicked quickly, bullet sprayed out, and each shot hit the head accurately. Bang bang bang. After 7 rounds, the pistol's empty magazine reminds you that the bullets are exhausted. Logan threw out the pistol without hesitation. The thick gun body was packed with strong force and hit a gunman on the head, knocking him out instantly. Then he rushed out suddenly, flicked his hands, and the bright silver steel claws stretched out instantly. While dodging bullets, he dodged in front of a gunman. Without waiting for his reaction, Logan pierced the gunman's chest with his steel claws without hesitation, lifted the gunman up violently, used it as a personal shield, and rushed towards the next gunman. And go, bang bang bang. The other gunmen showed fear and kept pulling the trigger on Logan. However, with Logan's extreme speed and powerful burst, these gunmen had no chance to resist at all. In just a few minutes, more than a dozen gunmen fell to the ground, and the flowing blood completely dyed the entire courtyard red. At this time, Donald had already hidden in a hotel room. Looking at Logan, who seemed like a killing god outside, his eyes were full of anger, and he roared, "Logan, you will soon pay the price for your actions. My Donald's people are not so easy to kill." That the voice fell, Logan heard a burst of car engine sound. Several black vans sped over. Before the cars stopped, the door was opened, and more than a dozen gunmen rushed down. The dark gunmen aimed at Logan almost at the same time. Bang bang bang. Damn it, not seeing this, Logan slid to the back of the car, picked up Laura, and took cover with obstacles, ran back to the room, carried Gabriella, and strode to the second floor. The bullet from the gunman behind him flew over and almost hit his back, and the wall on his side collapsed.